know, I was chopping it up with the homie, and we were discussing the systematic destruction of Africa's warrior class, right? This systematic destruction was very similar to what happened to the Native Americans. The Native Americans were taken and they were put into boarding schools. They were put into Catholic missionary schools, right? Where the Catholics were keen to destroy the Native American, keep the man, right? And this is something similar to what happened on the continent, right? They destroyed the warrior class and made sure that there could be no other warrior class with the education system they instituted. And this education system, right, was able to build very skilled workers. But these skilled workers did not view their skills as something to benefit and fight for the freedom of Africa, right? They looked at their skills as a means to become more accepted into the white society that they were able to kind of socialize this new group of children to through their boarding schools. And Ibrahim Traore is not just a representation of kicking out the foreign influence that colonizing nations still have over Africa. Ibrahim Traore is actually a lot more than that, right? Ibrahim Traore is a symbol both in modern representation and in past juxtaposition of the former warrior class that used to rule Africa. Africa being led by politicians, especially sub-Saharan Africa, being led by politicians and not smart warriors is just not our way. It is not our way. It is not something that has worked since colonization. Reinstituting the warrior class, reinstating the warrior class, recreating a warrior class that is responsible for the, I would say, responsible for the protection and defense of the cultural elements that make us strong enough to fight has not been a discussion among most politicians or even intellectuals. In when you look at developed nations and when you look at the top hegemonic nations that exist to this day, they spent a lot of time making sure their warrior classes are fostered from childhood, right? Fostered from childhood. When you look at the Chinese and how they train their children, I do believe some of it can be a bit much for a young child. However, in the world that we live in today, a warrior and a scientist all wrapped up into one, you know, developed mind is a mind that is hard to enslave. Ibrahim Traore is a warrior first who is showing us his competency in maintaining state capacity, right? Slowly by time, as time continues, he's showing us his ability to maintain state capacity by what he's deciding to focus on. For example, agriculture, right? The amount of time he has spent in growing food for his own nation is it's something I haven't seen in a while, right? But again, I have yet to see the institution of Africa's warrior class and the reinstitution, I should say, of Africa's warrior class. And that's something I'm a bit confused about, right? Because if we look here, a quick search can tell you Africa was led by warriors before European colonization. Warriors were important to many African kingdoms and empires, which were often led by military focused rulers, right? Military focused rulers. The Songhai Empire is an example they list. The Kingdom of Benin is an example they live. They leave, right? And then it goes into warfare of in pre-colonial Africa, right? But this is something that I do not think has been discussed often enough when we talk about Africa's sovereignty, and pan-African focus, right? Whether it be across the diaspora or across the continent itself. The reinstitution of the warrior class and warrior-led groups is not something that we've discussed. It's not something that has been explored by the normal mind. We are actually taught to look at military leaders as dictators, or as negative dictators, right? Even though we've seen what a strong military leader can do, right? Even though that's our way. And before European conquest, we were led by our strongest and our brightest, right? Politicians don't have to necessarily even prove that they're the brightest, let alone the strongest. And a warrior and a soldier, a general, their mindset is far different from a politician, right? Far different from a politician. And one thing the professor said, he said that just because you make a good soldier doesn't mean that you will make a good politician. And just because you make a good politician doesn't mean you'll make a good soldier. And just because you're a good soldier or a good politician doesn't mean you'll make a good leader. And if you are a good leader, that doesn't mean you'll be a good soldier or a good politician. I think, though, for Africa and for Africans, Ibrahim Traore is a glimpse at what can occur when you have the courage of a warrior, the courage of a soldier, right? Because I don't think what Africa is missing is brains, it's balls. It's balls. Our warrior class was destroyed. We have plenty of brains. We have plenty of scholars. We have plenty of PhDs. We have plenty of doctors, plenty of lawyers, plenty of engineers. We have no warriors. We have no warrior class. Your average American bears arms, goes to the gym, practices shooting, right? Your average one, your average African, mostly into not self-defense, not self-reliance as it pertains to, their own understanding of it, but towards European ideals of success. They copied every aspect of being European, except for how seriously Europeans take their freedom, their justice, and their equality, and their weapons, right? Copying everything European except the one thing that would maybe even help them, which is the courage to use a weapon for their freedom against direct opposition to Europeanization and colonization. This is something that I don't think my father's generation got in touch with seeing as much, right? Because again, the warrior class was destroyed. We only see that among the Maasai, right? Among the Maasai. But go to America, go to Europe, and I'm not talking soldiers, right? I'm not talking soldiers. Kenyan soldiers, African soldiers. I'm sure African soldiers, have some form of pride for their countries, right? But not in the sense of, you know, truly being led to advance Africa like Traore has been doing, right? Like the whole Sahel has been doing. A warrior is different from a soldier, right? A warrior has a mind of his own. A warrior is able to look at things from the ethnocentric perspective from which he originates. A warrior is originated through deeper values and principles. A soldier merely is a trained bot that takes orders. This is something I want to continue wrestling with and talk to the professor a little bit about, right? Because you know, I think the warrior class is going to be the class that frees our people. I do not think it's going to be the political class. We've seen the political class be instituted by the European nations. They instituted the political class. They educated the political class. They taught them, you know, deep levels of ideological subversion, going from Machiavelli to Hobbes to Kant, to bring them into the fold of this globalist dominant hierarchy that they've wanted for a long time, right? Um, and that's what they educated them in, and they were able to take this group of people from their parents, bring them into boarding schools, and ideally create the perfect African that would allow them to, control them by proxy from afar based on the values they gave them as children, right? We saw this happen with the Native Americans. This is not new. They copied and pasted it. But again, similarly to, the conversation I was having with the homie about, how little Africans know about how Europeans systematically destroyed things over time because they weren't taught this global history, and now they don't want to know it because Africa's history is so vast, right? This is a major problem that still exists today. Um, and I don't think the youth, people my age and younger, are aware of that being a central problem, right? It's a major problem how the warrior class was destroyed. And the warrior class didn't destroy soldiers or weapons or even an army, but it did destroy a warrior, right? Which is a different archetype, right? It's a different archetype. A warrior is a far different individual from a soldier. And I don't know, this is something I want to tap into more. But like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you think, and we'll be expanding on this a little bit more.